Hi everyone, Kenneth Martin here from the Hard Hat Talks podcast. I'm joined today with Karen and Wilson Shaw from BCA Insulation in Shotts, our hometown, we too. Karen Wilson, thank you for coming along to the podcast today. We usually start off just with a wee introduction for our guests to yourselves, not necessarily how you met and fell in love, but just to yourselves and how you get involved in the business and a wee bit of history about the business.
You start?
Well, BCA was kind of born out of an accident almost.
Right.
When I went self-employed initially back in 1999, the BCA actually stands for Building Contacts Agency. And the initial dream was to be a contacts agency for people doing building work.
Mm-hmm.
However, from bad timing, a couple of weeks after that, I had an accident, fractured my skull, brain hemorrhage and things like that. So with 6 weeks lying in the hospital, that model didn't quite take off.
Right.
And as I was recovering, people from the construction industry, which I came from as a QS, started texting me to say, "Hey, you're self-employed, and I know your dad does loft insulation.
Right.
Would you like to do some insulation for us? You're doing stuff like that." So I started looking at insulation as an option, because the building contacts agency just wasn't going to happen, and was kind of surprised to realise that when you did an analysis on it, there was political drivers at the time, there was climate change coming about, social drivers from fuel prices, discussions about it going up in the years to come, and it just all of a sudden seemed like a business that could work. So by 2000, we bid for our first tender on the basis that if we were successful, we would have an office, we would get cavity wall insulation truck, we would get certificated, we would etc. to get energy device and all that. And we got a place in the tender, and that was us off and running as an insulation contractor.
Excellent.
And then from there on, we were never quite happy with the basic types of insulation like loft, cavity and draft proofing. It was good to start, but it wasn't quite sexy enough.
All right.
So we've always adopted a kind of open arm approach to technology. And through the 26 years, we've had several R&D programs with different universities in Scotland, and tried to stay ahead of the curve by developing new systems of our own or just coming up with solutions for the more difficult to treat properties. Pioneered internal wall insulation and stone properties, bead and cavity wall, blown cellulose, things like that.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So what then is happening in the industry just now? Because I guess as architects, we are probably involved, well, insulation is part and parcel of all of our projects. But probably arguably a lot of the stuff we're involved in is maybe more some of the traditional stuff as opposed to looking for bespoke solutions.
Yeah.
So tell us a wee bit about what's happening in the industry now and maybe what's driving things and how the companies respond to that.
Lots of things happening just now in the industry.
Right.
I think, especially the government, Scottish industry is very good. That's really focused on making sure people's houses are warm and fit for purpose and things like that as well. And down south is a wee bit different. Unfortunately, funding's driven from down south, so we get tidbits left kind of thing as well. So Wilson can probably get more about that. But definitely for our industry, it's more looking at the moment, insulation that was incorrect for that property. So we're taking a lot of what's called foam insulation out of cavity walls just now. That's not fit for purpose at all. It's shrunk away for the walls. It's lots of voids and everything in it. And also a lot of the mineral wool who's into the walls as well. 20 years ago, that's not fit for purpose. So a lot of the thing just now is we're taking it all out of the walls.
A lot of bad installations as well.
Find a lot of bad practices. So a big focus is making sure the house is fit for what it is. So you've got proper insulation going in there. So bead insulation as well going on to it. We do a lot of external wall insulation as well. So it's more like what is the standard of the heat loss coming out of people's properties just now. So the Scottish Government's great for that because it gives good grants and focuses for it as well. And there's management agencies and such like have got targets to reach as well. So that's where a lot of things that we're still doing just now. And we're very much doing a lot of internal wall insulation because it's not just traditional properties that have got insulation problems. So it's quite interesting what we can do. But funding's quite difficult just now with lots of things.
Big changes at the moment. One of the biggest funders across the UK was the energy company obligation that you might have heard about, ECO.
Right.
It was in the Eco 4 phase that was due to end the end of March, but there's always been a carryover before from Eco 1, Eco 2, Eco 3, worth billions, and it was the funding that came through the energy companies being forced to meet an obligation. So it was being all our bills, by the way, we would all be paying for it, but the energy companies would have to achieve targets that initially were set on carbon, but interestingly got changed to fuel savings, and it was aimed at fuel poor rather than a carbon programme that changed to being a fuel poor programme. But the current Westminster government announced in the budget in autumn that it was to cease for the right reasons. It had created an animal and the quality has been horrendous. Workmanship, despite it having unprecedented levels of checks and balances in place. It created a situation where if you could find the right type of house that was someone on particular benefits, who was rural off gas, installing insulation renewable measures could give you a house that was worth, in some cases, over £100,000.
Right.
So it created an animal, and it created a lot of greedy installers who just popped up out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah.
So quite rightly, in my opinion, it's been cut, and the Westminster government have just announced yesterday where the 15 billion funding is going to go to support the loss of that in the future.
Right.
The Warm Homes scheme has been,
Is that a new scheme, or will that just be something similar to the last one? It's just a different name.
Interestingly, it's making some changes.
Right.
Karen touched on the fact that Scotland's always ran its own race. So we would always, the ECO was a UK scheme, but Scotland has led the way in terms of Scottish government funded schemes over the years. Base schemes have been very popular, and we're currently in the Energy Efficiency Scotland area based scheme. It's different because the Scottish government would issue money to local authorities when they came up with a plan of what they were going to do with it. It was aimed at fuel poor. And that's the sort of market we're in. We would bid to the council to deliver that year, 2 or 3 year contract. The other thing, and that could include renewables and all forms of insulation, depending on what the council felt they needed. Another funding that the Scottish Government kind of led the way in was the Energy Efficiency Scotland grant and interest-free loan scheme. So for people that were considered able to pay, everyone in Scotland can get funding up to, if it's insulation, I think it's a maximum of £10,000 if it's solid wall, less if it's cavity or loft. And 25% of that you pay, you can get as an interest-free loan or pay it, and 75% is as a grant. Now that the Warm Homes has been updated, they've introduced the grant and loan scheme.
Right.
For some of it, and some of it is still going to fuel poor free.
Right. Okay. Sounds all very well. If you're in the industry, so you'll have dotted your I's and crossed your T's in terms of understanding it all. But it sounds quite a bit more complex for somebody who's trying to get their head around about it. But it probably all comes from the right reasons. With some more, a theme that seems to be in the podcast is loads of stuff get done for the right reasons across the construction industry, and not just Scotland, the UK. But there's loads of unintended consequences that just are never thought through, and then suppliers, installers are left to listen and put it all together. It sounds as if most of your workload is coming from larger projects, government funded projects, not necessarily a one-off homeowner. Is that right? Or
it's a good question. Path has led us down the area-based approach, so we haven't touched eco for years, and that was because when Eco 4 came about, they introduced a PAS standard, PAS 2030 and PAS 2035, and it brought in a whole range of roles, which we got people qualified in: retrofit coordinators, retrofit designers. It just raised the bar. Also introduced a lot of rules that we felt were based on English solid wall construction. Coronation Street house, it didn't really fit with our stone tenements. Like, you have to do 100% of the wall. We've got lovely plaster cornicing. We've got window shutters. The initial rules that they brought in were going to say, well, tough, that gets stripped off. Let's go. So we backed off of it for that reason. And we can maybe come back to that later on, how we've developed ways by that, which were more like the coal mine, turnover, steady, low margin.
Okay. With all of that in mind, then the last 20
26
years, okay, longer than us. Off my cap to you.
I never even asked you the question, right? But you talked about the individual homeowners.
Oh yeah.
So can you almost like contracts going on?
Right.
So our contract will be with the authority or the housing association. Individually, we've got wee mini contracts going on with every homeowner.
Right. Okay.
So we would have the scope of works available and the criteria, but from the point of survey or first contact, it's us that deals with the customer.
Right.
We check they meet the criteria, we canvass, find customers, survey the house, we present them with a proposal.
Right, okay.
Once that's all agreed, we maybe run it by the authority to rubber stamp it and approve it, but we carry out the work in coordination with them. So it's very much the customer.
Right, okay.
on a monthly basis, we're having project review meetings, KTPs, and valuations to the
client. Okay. Does that the retrofit, the fixing of poor workmanship that's gone in the past, the whole how do we bring the existing housing stock or buildings up to a more modern standard is a challenge, also financially, I guess. Probably just one part of that. So do you also, or would you also get involved, for example, in renewables, solar on roofs, window replacements? What kind of job would you do?
Whatever we need to do. So we've started doing renewables a good few years ago.
Right.
Do
Kind of knew that, that's why I was asking.
Solar panels and heat pumps and everything else as well.
Right, okay.
Especially a lot of houses we do a lot of Gala Buttes, they're all rural houses as well. And they really need to looked after because they've got so lots of things to think about with the wind-driven rain, the sea, and they get the beach and things like that right there. So there's lots of different things coming off of that into their walls as well then. So absolutely, air source heat pumps been a massive thing for a lot of people, but it's educating them as in you've got to insulate your house to make sure your heat pump's going to work. Difficult thing because they just want the new heating. So to educate them properly as in, well, you can get your new heating, it's fine, but it's not going to work. You need to make sure your house is warm, obviously.
Insulation, air tightness.
Has changed from just being, oh, your loft needs insulation to the whole house approach was the magic phrase. It's a whole house approach, which is only available if the area-based scheme rule was covering all the measures. So we might have contracts where it is only one measure, but we may have contracts where it's all insulation measures, and we may have contracts where it's insulation and solar or insulation and air source. So that kind of dictates what's on offer. It's definitely, that's more the norm when we're tendering stuff at various measures now, which means as a company 5-6 years ago we had to make sure we were getting on the frameworks that people choose to use, SPA and Scotland Excel and the like, make sure we were on for various lots and not just insulation. We had to be on it for solar PV, high heat retention, heat and air source heat pump.
All right, okay. So with all that in mind then, I don't mean BCA as a business, but do you think your industry, because I think this is a huge problem. As I'm sure you do, drive through rural villages and look at some of these properties and go, is the roof done? Is the windows done? Probably is insulated. The heat system's probably done. Probably 30-40-year-old rewires. And I look at all these buildings and think, how can we as a society actually afford to bring our buildings up to date? So in terms of your industry, do you think we're starting to scrape the surface, or are we well on our way to those targets?
I think we're scraping the surface.
A lot of solid walls to deal with, haven't we? An awful lot of solid walls to deal with, and it's about educating. That's what's out. We need to get more word out about what we can do for solid wall properties, rather than what people think. Oh, I live in a traditional house. I think when they live in older houses, it's more difficult to help them. It's not. It's just it's easy to help them as well. And there is funding out there that people can get out there if you're in the right level. If you're in the grant fund and things like that, yes, expensive certainly as well. So you've got to be able to, the pros and cons of, well, I'm paying that amount of money for insulation, but it'll take some amount of years to pay it back. But this is the savings I'm going to make on it as well. There's many new builds getting done as well. We need to make sure we maintain our old properties, obviously.
100%. Yeah, we're just not delivering anywhere near the number of new built houses.
No.
In our stock, I didn't realise how different our stock was until getting involved in some of those challenges with the R&D and how we treat a solid wall, particularly, the dynamics of a solid brick, hard plastered wall compared to a 600mm stone, drafty gap, plaster and lath, completely different. And that's what we focus a lot on the R&D, because we have to really fight our corner to avoid being shoehorned down, this is the way you need to do it. And we still have to do that now, not only with the people that design these schemes and the rules for them, but also with people like Historic Scotland as well. So we've got lots of fights going on in lots of different areas.
Everybody's fighting with Historic Scotland.
Yeah, it means we have to keep doing more and more research.
To
be sure of what we are saying. Detailing is really important. Modelling, not just modelling the thermal modelling, but the hygrothermal modelling now as well, to make sure that as it goes through the layers, the moisture's not going to create an interstitial condensation point somewhere in there. And you start to realise that the modelling is limited to what's in its database, and that might be German stone and not Scottish stone. So it's getting a complicated arena now, because we're just at that level, the hard stuff now.
Interesting, because that at a design level is something that we deal with day in, day out. Goes on multiple elements of building fabric and design and sustainability, and if that's protected, as the badge is protected before you. Everyone's knowledge of all is becoming so much more, it's becoming greater. but then the time to get on a site is becoming longer and longer and much more expensive. You know, I mean, some of the previous podcasts we've kind of talked about that as to how things, and that's the premise of the podcast, is what's happening in the industry. Challenges, I'm sure, in your industry, and before we get to the big challenge or whatever you feel is the big challenge, maybe I want to tap into some of the other kind of mini micro challenges that you're facing just now.
I think the cost for even us delivering a job is more expensive now because everything we've got to have in the background, checks and balances,
massive
and
overheads.
you know, so all qualifications we've got to have and everything else as well. And because we have got big overheads, then you're more expensive certainly as well. Whereas other ones who maybe don't have the checks and balances in place are a lot expensive, but they maybe don't do the job as full standard as they should be doing it, kind of thing, because some of the checks aren't getting done really as well. So that's the thing that kills us, is the checks and balances before we even do a job, really.
One of the criticisms of Eco, other than the massive failure rates when they did a retrospective review, was, I think it was 64 pence in the pound of the cost was to do with the bureaucracy, these roles that were involved and all the accreditations, and hopefully in this new thing they're going to that out a bit. To be an installer, we need to be past 2030 accredited. We need to have our guys all system designer trained. We need to be approved by a system designer. They've created a new suite of any, so we haven't assessed. We've got the cost of when we have a job to do the survey. We then have to go through an independent surveillance assessment where we have to pay money and submit it to someone to look at our survey and all the pictures and go, and do that job. And then we've got the guarantee at the end of it. We've got the warranty from the system designer. Then we've got our workmanship. It's all the levels. And for it still to go wrong, concentration was just on the wrong things. These rogues were great at providing pictures and getting all the signatures and the dates lining up perfectly. It might be the same picture that was used in half a dozen applications. They were really good at that. So the challenges are the overheads, the records and the training and all the boxes we have to tick and all the photographs we have to take. Another huge challenge for us, and it could turn almost like business critical, is trying to recruit and retain. Surprisingly, at the lower level, semi-skilled level, finding that a nightmare. We've got a horrific percentage of turnover.
Funny, because there's prevailing themes in all the podcasts. Bureaucracy is one of the things that, you know, industry bureaucracy just went mad to the extent that you think, why as an architect, why do we bother? Does anyone want to develop something? You know, of course, an architect will always want to architect, a developer will always want to develop because that's what we do, but you need to be mad to do it. No, but back to the bureaucracy, we had the last podcast, which isn't live yet, was Palmer Cunningham, who was talking about procurement for Tier 1 contractors. And we spent a bit of time chatting about all the various Quango organisations that you need to be a member of that. None of it has helped, you know, processes or improve quality. It's just another tick box and another fee. You know, at a simple level, as you think about, and I've said this in a few podcasts, the minimum living wage. You know,
back up again.
It's going back up again. You know, responsible employer, of course we want to pay the minimum wage, and block architects do. I'm sure you guys do. Do we need to tick a box and pay an organisation a membership fee just so we can get a logo through it? It's no offence to the organisation, but why do we need all these wee organisations? And it gets me is the one you pay for the keep people's.
Some people
No, you keep people's details on file and you have to pay. You think you're paying £100 odd a year just to say that I'm
keeping them secure.
All these wee things just add up to expenses that we don't need to pay, and processes we don't need to pay, and answer an email we don't need to answer, in my opinion. And they're all there for the right reasons. But I don't think my 20 odd years in the industry would suggest that although they're there for the right reasons, they're not doing what they're intended to do. I think that was part and parcel of the conversation with Pamela. The other thing that's interesting you mentioned about recruitment, semi-skilled, chatted about that in the podcast as well. A recurring theme for professionals, a recurring theme for the contractors who are doing it. It's a recurring theme for the universities and the colleges are putting them through. People we've had in the podcast are saying, we're getting the candidates through the door, but then we can't get them in at the workplace. The feeling might be that it's we want to be influencers and
I want nicer jobs.
Entitlement and expectations since COVID are different.
Definitely our major problem. Like the semi-skilled staff that we need to be out on the fields, stuff out the walls and that kind of thing as well. They're wanting £700 a week. but they don't want to work for it. You pay £700 a week, you've got to do it right, you've got to turn up every single day, do the job right, we'll check it's right, and then fine. And that is the struggle. You find out people have got maybe some issues, or they've got impact. You need to do criminal checks and things like that now, because there's so many people who have got stuff in the past that they haven't told you about, and because we work in people's homes, we've got certain things. It's about the retention of the field staff at the basic level is immense. It's so difficult, and we train them all up, spend all this time, extra higher rate for training, and then they're either not any good or they just leave. Like somebody working a week as well, price work for lower level ones is more difficult. Sometimes when they've made like, they're like, oh, that's fine, we'll take the Thursday, Friday off, or take Monday off, and it's so frustrating, because they forget like what specific plant and all our fans and things like that as well, and that's your money, and try to get them to educate them. Well, you need to watch that drill, you need to watch the generator, They're just not interested.
No, there's a complete imbalance, I think, and I'm not even going to say it's the younger generation, because there was a time where I actually had a construction company not too long ago, and they weren't young guys, they were kind of semi-skilled guys. And I think, my goodness, they would just not turn up on a Friday, turn up on a Monday, say, well, I'm to you, I could just never come up. I says, well, you'll not get paid. That's all right, I'm fine with Monday to Thursday's wages. I just went away with the missus or something. I go, that's just...
Never mind the customer.
Never mind the customer. Probably the challenge is as much as you maybe want to say, well, go then. If I let you go, you've got next week to do the job. You're better getting 4 days out of someone than nothing out of the next guy. So it's definitely an industry challenge. And interestingly enough, Pamela in the last podcast said that it's the same for procurement in Scotland. And as much as that, what the tier one contractors are going south and bringing labour up from down south.
Right.
And I said, why is that? Is it quality? The reason for it? It's just volume. They've got the bodies down there to bring them up. In Scotland, we just don't have the volume of bodies.
It's very regionalised as well. It's in trouble right in it. And you wonder, how am I winning this work when we've got guys in accommodation, travel time, ferries to pay for? It's because in some cases the locals aren't there. If they are there, expectations are even higher. What they'll do in a day is much less. I think the Western Elves in particular. There is casters and joiners and that there, but what they expect to get paid and what they'll do is half of what we'll do. In Moray, where you've got Lossiemouth and stuff like that, the average joiner's on like an hour or something like that. It's cheaper for us to go up and deliver the contract. Still can't get my head around. And with us having our own system now, our own internal wall system, just went through its BBA certificate, we now have a training centre, so we're beginning to wonder, can we be a network? So if a local energy efficiency body or partnership has local work that they want to do with local contractors, can we then take, providing they're willing to put the work in and not be daft, can we take the local joiner and bring them down, train them, card them, get them qualified, and then supply them with the system? Time will tell if that works out or not.
It's a hard one because there's an easy path just down in construction. I think that's a reflection. I'm going to diverse because this is all, the podcast is all about construction, but you see it just in the UK generally. You see it in NHS, you see it, teachers screaming saying things are breaking down, we don't have enough people, systems aren't working. I find it ironic that systems aren't working. I repeat myself in the podcast is that we've all got pockets, this AI stuff, we've got AI coming in. AI, I think, might just be the one thing that flips this in its head, but it takes so long to wait for an appointment in NHS when we've got computer systems and technology to streamline things. But I think what happens is there's just so many more layers of bureaucracy put on top of it just to slow the whole thing down. So with some of the industry challenges, I wanted to try and spend a bit more time thinking about what is the big challenge, either in your business or in the industry. What's the one big thing?
I think recently, last year, we were caught out a little bit last year, to be totally honest, with BCA strive to do things the right way. And that very strict about our reputation and everything else as well. And if we can't do it right, it's not worth doing. That's it, black and white. So we've got lots of contractors who've worked with us for a long time, the standard obviously. And this year, a couple of our contractors sneaked under the radar, cheaper prices and things like that, and they went straight with them.
Competitors, right? Not people that...
like we've been companies for 16 years, and all of a sudden they're turning themselves to the cheaper contractors as well, which was fine, because we know that we'll still do it right. It took us a bit to hurt us. The big thing, what we found out last year as well, is nobody checks that we're doing it right. So when we've went digital, COVID, we spent a lot of money on our digital information we give. So I drop you a button, we can send everything away to your
All the
clients and things like that to
images,
say,
all the tests.
this is what we do. That's inside your wall at the moment. All cleared, that's cleared. Now we're going to fill it once it's all been checked. And we, want to do that within a certain time frame. Found that people weren't doing it within a time frame, they were doing it quicker. Don't know how they could do it quicker because we've got to remove the cavity wall, for instance, and check it. Then we send it away to make sure that we can get a guarantee on it. Then it comes back to say, yes, you're fine filling it. So about 7 days within time. And some people were filling it that afternoon or the next day. But your stuff isn't set up within the walls yet, so you're still keeping the stuff in the walls. And what the frustrating thing was, fine, you're keeping us great, but make sure that you're checking that everything's coming out of the walls properly. But they haven't. And that's the big thing is, we don't care that we're more expensive, but we'll do it right for you.
Yeah.
We won't walk away leaving the house worse than it started. But other people have maybe not got as much scruples or morals for doing that. And it's a big thing for me this year on my side. It's difficult to deal with, obviously, as well.
It's the age-old industry problem, isn't it? Is when people's purses start getting pulled a bit tighter. How do you fix it? Prices are going up, wages are going up. So what's left? Well, we'll just try and do it a bit quicker. Quicker means shortcuts.
I don't know how we tackle that. Education. Maybe we need to sit with the client and say, not on a contract, but maybe through information bites or classes or whatever, CPDs, where we say, if you're doing a very basic extraction and refill contract, what's critical is you need to check when it's been emptied. Just the ones at the ground, by the way. Guys that are doing it wrong. It's the ones up high in the apex that's not getting done. Get yourself a set of ladders, get up into the difficult areas and check. If you're not doing it, you're leaving yourself wide open. You're spending all this money extracting and refilling, then you're maybe putting external wall insulation on top of it, or at the very least re-rendering it. And a few years down the line, you're maybe going to have horrible mouldy patches showing up where that old insulation has become saturated. New stuff self-draining.
Right, yeah.
Any water it does get through driven rain will drain down the bead as it's designed to do, and it'll hit a clump of foam or a clump of fibre. It'll just become a sponge. It's so frustrating because, like Karen said, we're losing work in the last year, and we've got an extra overhead because we're inspecting everything. And we're losing work, and we even overheard a phone call when a guy was getting tapped up from another company that one boy had moved to already, and supervisor heard him say, "It's great, mate, no one checks what you do." And another one last week, we were on a job, the supervisor doing his inspections, and you get chatting to this other company, said, "I noticed you haven't done up the apex." "No, we don't do that, we just do up to the ceiling line." Open, you don't even realise what they're creating.
I think as business owners and people with responsibility, ones that type of thing frustrates.
Isn't checking. It's like,
yeah. I think the problem is the semi-skilled person, the person with the boots on the ground, the person that's getting a wage for turning up. They don't always get the importance of those issues. You've seen it over the years, 20 odd years, 25 years as an architect. Turn up in site and the guy, prime example is the brickie putting blockwork up in the kit house. Where's your ties? Or the client's not delivered because that's all coming back. The problem, I think, in industry is it's probably expensive. And clerk of works you mentioned there, I was younger in the industry, clerk of works were quite prevalent in construction sites. Now the only client we know of that has a works department is the council that we work with. They've got clerk of works, I guess for the right reasons, to make sure things are happening properly, to get eyes on site when we're not there. It's a luxury for an architect of a course as well.
And the clerk of works has got to be
qualified,
and maybe insulation sometimes is a bit of a black art. Extraction refill, they've probably seen it as be that basic. They don't really matter much, but you could do some things seriously wrong if you did it. Loft insulation could be block the ventilation, or you covered a heavy electric cable, or
I think maybe the insulation industry, because I think there's sometimes about not the whole putting a building together issue. You think there's just far too much choice in terms of different types of insulations and too many types of buildings to try and fit different types of insulation to it? Is it just too big a problem?
Maybe try to take the end U value and air tightness to a higher level. It makes a lot of things matter. It didn't seem to before, like ventilation and things like that. So possibly, I think also see sometimes drawings or a spec come out paper. It's great to draw. One example I could think of is in a loft where we're maybe going like 50 thick. I think the council was doing quite an extensive energy refurb of blocks of flats. So we're taking the insulation to 450, so you've got 3, maybe even 4 layers there. They wanted it covered with a membrane that was to be sealed to the membrane that was coming up through the eaves for airtightness.
All right, yeah.
That membrane had to have taped joints. How do you do that in a 450 thick insulation with the joists hidden 300 millimetres below?
Yeah.
Then add into that, we're going to have all these sprinklers now, and we're going to have aircon that are, just look at them, they're going to break. You know, sitting just fixed to the ceiling, no support, but hanging up 500 millimetres in aircon, that you're making the loft space, which is already an uncomfortable confined space, an obstacle course.
Yeah.
And you're expected to get into the eaves and take, a membrane coming up. It's just like people aren't thinking of the practicalities of how.
It's interesting. The thing that came to my mind there is because North Lanarkshire Council Building Control Department have thrown this in recently, that if you're trying to build an extension and the land you're building an extension on suspected of having gas issues, which a lot of Lanarkshire is because of previous coal mining issues, then they want you to do gas testing. And I'm kind of wondering if that's affected you, because if you're getting involved in making buildings more airtight, which means any gases that, because traditional older buildings, the gases would go into the structure and then ventilate because it's a leaky building through the gaps. But if we're making them more airtight, I'm just wondering whether
it's not came up so far that I'm aware of.
Right.
You tell them for 20 seconds.
Always had as a duty of care for fuel burning appliances and safe combustion, which sometimes makes customers a bit angry when we're telling them we need to put a vent in at your living room wall. Why? Because you've got a wood burning stove that's over a size, or a living flame fire, gas fire, or a coal fire. Well, I didn't need that before. Yeah, but because we are relining the internal wall insulation, we're sealing everything up, and you don't take any chances. That's been about for a long while. And the rules that I was talking about, PAS 2035, there was airtightness testing as an option for certain things as well. Wet rooms had to be ventilated, rightly so, with a continuous mechanical vent, and your trickle vents had to be working order and all that. So it has kind of come in a wee bit, but it's all to do with condensation and so far.
Yeah, I wanted to try and chat then on two quick things before we kind of round things up. I think I wanted to try and get a wee bit more information on the system that you've been developing yourselves. Before we get to that one, talk about some of the previous practices that's in the industry. One of the ones that frustrates us as architects is getting involved in buildings with these spray foam installations. That's a big topic. Maybe tell us a wee bit about your experiences with those ones.
Okay.
Quite a few recently.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Absolutely,
spray foam shocking in people's lofts. Absolutely. People should have been down for putting this in. Moisture build up within the loft is just ridiculous.
Pretty can't see it.
Yeah, taking them out. We would never put spray foam in MD's properties. The amount of calls we're getting now because maybe we had them in 7 months, but yet they're starting now to get moisture through obviously the ceilings as well, and we do a moisture test and it's like something well, it should be 7, taking it out.
Or more than that, 20, it should be 12. But...
the amount of money that they've paid to put them in, like the £5,000-6,000, costing them £2,000-3,000 to get it taken out, because you literally need to watch what you're doing when you're getting it scraped out or removed properly as well.
And strangely, a lot of time they've been alerted to it because someone randomly came to their door and said, "Have you had spray foam installed?"
Yeah,
it's probably the same people who installed it.
Yeah. So we've got a market where they're chatting with doors to install it, and then a market chatting with door to take it away.
Seems that way at times. I just don't believe it could be so random that. Like, we back in 2014 or whatever, we bought the kit so we could do spray foam. Driver for that was we wanted to be able to put cavity wall into particular non-trad. The only way of doing that was with the certification, the guarantee was with foam systems. Kind of poly, no, it was I'll come back to urea, Wilson block and things like that, which were certificated to do. They were amazing because the insulation value in those walls once were done was superb, because the foam had a high thermal conductivity, but also cut out the sound. A lot of people constantly said to us after installing they didn't hear the traffic outside anymore, which was noticeable. And we actually did get it specified by a chartered surveyor once in a building where the ties were failing and it couldn't be retied. We used the foam to tie it together, stick it together. Because it increases the structural strength of the building. It's a panel out of it.
Didn't realise that was the case.
To be very careful when you're installing it, because I'd seen once it move a door frame out because it was that strong. But that's why you've got all the tiny drill pattern and you do it in layers, so always has a chance to expand before you put more in and all that. If you're doing it right, yeah. We did some of them and we sprayed underside of like concrete floors and we didn't do much. But at the same time, all these new companies were popping up doing spray foam into lofts and they were appearing that was energy saving trust information days, and I was taking my sign going, I don't know if you should have them here. Oh, it's got a BBA certificate. And I would say, yeah, look at the BBA certificate. It tells you that that system's not closed cell or not 100% closed cell. What does that mean? Well, it means you need to finish it with a vapour barrier or a sprayed vapour barrier. Or the way these people put these contractors are put it in people's homes in Scotland, where we've got usually bitumen felt and we've got sarking. It's just, I don't know, no surprise that we're now seeing all these cases of taking it back out. We're not caught in it, we didn't do any of that. We are getting a little bit of an income stream from taking it back out. But it is a shame. It shouldn't have. Again, lack of knowledge and education. Somebody comes and shows you all the shiny certificates they've got. Joe Public doesn't have the wherewithal to read the detail. And
remember, we were involved with a project once where it was applied to the roof, and I looked at it and checked the certificates. It was me. Thought, well, okay. Then, as you know, I never did the works in the attic, but then a couple of years passed and they came back to do it, and then we kind of, just with the education we then had with it, that's all got to come out. It was the thing, well, you never told me that 2 years ago, didn't you? 2 years ago. Yeah, I guess that's I guess that's the point of the whole, you see all these new insulations or better still, new products hitting the marketplace that's to do with any part of building fabric, and it's the latest thing and we're going to go for it and we're doing it, and then 4, 5, 10 years later we actually start to learn about the implications of using it and it's all coming back off. It's product, sometimes it's still, it's a challenge. So clearly then you've got a wee solution to, well, I don't know if it's a solution to that specifically, but you've been working on your own insulation program.
Yeah, their own system's called the shawl system.
Oh, I like it.
Tried to make the
big
Scottish
huggy shawl,
shawl. We've taken a system that was already there and we added into over the years to kind of for the Scottish market, the solid stone tenements, so 1900s buildings and whatnot. Effectively, it's a phenolic foam bonded to plasterboard with a vapour barrier. What it does is it delivers a high performance per millimetre because it's got the phenolic on the back of it. Because of the R&D we've done since 2012 right through, and hopefully we're about to start some more this year, you can just apply it straight onto the existing substrate.
Okay.
Wallpapers off and things like that, or scarified if as long as it's solid, it's not vinyl or anything like that, it can go straight on. One of the things we developed with the manufacturer early days was we just put it on with an acrylic adhesive. Maybe a few screws per board just to hold it in place until it sets. So it's very thin. It would take a 1.7 stone plaster and lath U value down to about 0.28 with maybe only 65 mil on it. We just skim coat it with plaster to finish it. It's not as intrusive as the other alternatives in the market, which would make sure that you take it back to the stone. That's because those systems generally insulated studs of either extruded polystyrene or a rock wool, and then you put glass wool in between and then you line it plasterboard. It's not as intrusive as those. It also has the ability to accommodate, like cornicing, for example, and window shutters. We're leaving a gap that's uninsulated along the top. The reveals, which isn't best practice. So best practice would be we would insulate those areas, and if it's a plain reveal, we certainly would. But in the research and development that we did, even from the early stages of the modelling, we could show that a 600 stone with a gap in a plaster and lath finish that the cornice then sits on, the surface temperature was never enough to create a condensation issue if we left it in place. And all we've had to do then is create a little rebate detail angle. So when you actually walk into the room, you don't actually really notice that there's anything changed. The cornice still shows itself. If it's window shutters that the client doesn't want to remove, again, we'll just cap it back or we'll extend a facing trim to make it look like it was always there. So
it's although you're going to do more R&D on it, it's actually a system that's available in the marketplace just now.
Yeah, we got our BBA back in the spring. The next step for us now is to get it guaranteed by an independent guarantee. We've chosen the Installation Assurance Authority because they're the leading body in that side of things, and their standards are so high in terms of the independent surveillance assessment and things like that. So we're in the final throes of that just now. Hopefully pass audit in March, and we'll be able to put that system out there.
Excellent.
We've been installing this system
Mm-hmm.
for best part of about 14 years. We've probably installed it in 300 houses.
Right.
Houses, sorry.
1,000, right.
Stone houses with period features.
Mm-hmm.
And we have not had a single callback for any mould on cornice, any problems with reveals. We maybe 3 reveals in a block of no fines concrete flats in Dunoon, ex-military ones that had issues in the reveals. We'd done maybe 50 flats, there was only 3 with a problem. It was hard plastered, no fines, there was no space to insulate it, so we knew there was a possible risk there. But in the 3 houses that had issues, the user behaviour was over the scale. There was lots of animals in the house, teenage kids having showers. That's why it was only 3 out of 50 that had a problem. And other than that, the only other issue we had, strangely again, was the fixings, where we put the fixings to hold it until it sets. You could see the wee black spots. It was only at the back of the house, at the front, and we investigated it. We cut it open, put it back, and there was no issues with any rot or anything. It was simply the case, and I'd never seen this before, Kenny, that the straps that the lath was on were screwed to the stone rather than being on dukes.
Right. Right.
And that meant that when we put our temporary screws in, they were just touching the brick. Normally they would just come through the timber and be in no man's land in that void.
Yeah.
This time they were just touching the brick. So the cold transfer meant that it was showing up. And it took like years to show up. The reason for that was they had a living room and open kitchen, and their extractor fan had broke, and they had built an ensuite shower off that room as well. So it was a great example of how it changed in the house. It behaved differently, and it highlighted a tiny issue.
It's funny because you've done various house types over the last years, and houses are becoming much more thermally efficient and airtight. People just don't understand, despite telling them that you need to use your property differently. I think an example similar to that, it was like the box room of the house. I mean, showed us pictures of mould on our ceiling. I'm thinking, that's pretty bad, better get a look at it. Went and I looked at it. It was freezing outside, or had been freezing outside, so outside temperatures really cold. In this box room there was a bunk bed and a single bed to the side of it, so there was 3 kids sleeping in it. Checked the trickle vents were shut, because they would be, because it's freezing outside. And right above the bunk bed in the corner was the big patch of mould. You can't do that. Downstairs was the clothes drying in the clothes horse. So you need to rethink how you work. You need to leave the trickle vents open at least. It's freezing outside. You're heating down a wee bit. You're drying clothes when it's freezing. It's, and it's a huge learning curve, and it's a learning curve for society, because people are moving into it's not just houses that we've designed or are overseeing contractors with. It's mass house builders are all building to same or similar standards, and it's going to be a huge issue.
Quite often we get the blame for causing problems in people's houses for insulating it, but it's the behaviour. You back and look at the behaviour. You know, you're drying your clothes in the radiators, you don't your trickle vents on, your doors are all closed, there's not any fresh air and things like that coming in. You know, definitely educate.
It can also be just created a new target at its windows. Sometimes people say my windows are condensating now, they never before. We've just made all your walls warmer, so the moisture's looking for the cold surface. If that's it's hitting that point.
I remember one house I was in about 4 or 5 times, the same issue, moisture in the windows, particularly bad in the bedroom at night, which had an ensuite off it. So I'm saying, make sure, ensuite actually had a window, make sure you're ventilating, turn your fans on. I'm doing that, okay. Are you leaving your bedroom door open? You're doing that. I did it 4 or 5 times, and then I remember the pattern comment was, oh no, actually I got an email or a phone call. It was, decided last night to leave the bedroom door open, and the problem was non-existent. I thought, I did ask you if you left. It's a huge issue. It's unintended consequences. You're doing all this stuff for the right reasons, but getting people to behave in response is a huge challenge. You know, it's a huge challenge. Is there anything else you wanted to maybe let the listeners or the viewers know? Anything you think's before we kind of wrap things up?
No, I think just to be aware that there is funding available for everybody in Scotland. There's a video campaign now on Facebook. That message, if you live in Scotland and you own a private rented house, privately owned house, not private rented, do qualify for this grant and loan scheme. There's no means test, minimum council tax band. It's there for all.
Right, okay.
And I don't know about that. Yeah,
my daughter keeps saying a room in the attic's cold.
And it has stipulations, but it's all in line of the contractor must be Trustmark approved, and it must be recommended in your EPC.
Right, okay.
That'd be an issue, because then its performance certificates aren't good at service in non-trad houses. For example, in Western Barton, Did a gig for the council to do about 120 timber houses and another type of timber clad house. And rightly so, the people in the area didn't want it overcast. And I hate that as well. I hate when you see contractors putting rough casted DWI over a timber clad house. So we done some R&D on it. We got our academic involved, and we got a warrant to strip the cladding off. It was a shed. It was like 50 frame. That's what these two-storey houses were. No insulation.
Back in the day.
Just a bit of plasterboard like in the middle of the panel. If that was our insulation, I don't know. Combustion control, and so that was stripped out. We then sprayed the back of the plasterboard in the frame with a vapor check membrane, because there's no way of fitting it mechanically without stripping the inside off. So we sprayed it. We then put in a high performing rock wool, which lifted the U value significantly, filled that void with a non-combustible material, then put OSB on it, because there was no plywood or anything on it, it was just straps.
Right, okay.
Increased its like slenderness ratio, or whatever you call it, structural strength massively. Then breather paper, double strap, and then we put on a composite imitation timber cladding, and they looked the same as they were when they were stripped, but now they were maintenance free for 15 years. And its U value had went from here to here, and we not only had non-combustible material, but we were able to put strips to compartmentalise them, so every panel had an intumescent strip. And that was great. Now, if someone in that house went to Scottish Government, or to the ST anyway, Home Energy Scotland, and tried to get a grant to improve their house, wouldn't meet the standard because the EPC won't recommend external or internal wall insulation for that house type. And that happens a lot in different situations. So sorry, I'm going on, but be aware of the funding and aware of the checks and balances that should be done. You mentioned
That's our questions.
People in the public that happen more under the Great British Insulation Scheme and ECO, where that would happen in the one day. Go back in the day. That just can't be possible.
Can't be done,
so have your wits about you. Research what you're doing. The other thing is, in the market, I talked about Historic Scotland. There's a whole debate about vapor closed just now. It does make us in our system sound like we're cowboys, but we're still doing it the conventional way of having a vapor barrier on the warm side. Historic Scotland and a growing contingent of followers would have you use natural materials, leave it vapor open, let it absorb the moisture and put it back out. And I get all that, and we did a lot of the case studies for them, though we were the contractor installing it. I get it, but I think in the type of construction we're talking about, we've never seen the risk. I think the risk that they perceive is back to your solid, hard plaster brick walls. And so I would urge people, again, do your research, don't be led down that track, because that'll be twice as thick.
You could have a magic wand. We've had similar questions like this, but if you could have a magic wand that you could use in your industry, what would you use it for? What would you want to change?
Well, I know straight away what I would change. Make sure the contractor's doing the right job.
Right, so get everyone in a level par when it comes to doing workmanship and quality.
Yeah, I think that's the way I would word it. Create a level par, so that every contractor is training everyone at the same level and inspecting to the same level, and that your clients know what that level is. When I started back in '99 and got my first contract in 2000, it was for an organisation called EGA, Energy Action Grants Agency, who were run from Edinburgh, and they had technical monitors, and they were all really good, and they had a very definitive set of rules, standards that we still have on our shelf and refer to today for good practice. But because they were so good and the rules were so good, we're talking lofts, cavity and draft proof, and not all the complicated stuff now. But if I was recruiting someone, if I advertised and someone came from another company, they were at that level. The standard of inspection was so high, guys had to be trained to that level, had to deliver at that level, and we're used to delivering at that level. No other option. Recruiting was great. No matter who they came from, they were there. That's a golden generation. Now that golden generation now still got a lot of them, but they're now moving on to other roles because physically, it's a hard job to do. And every year we have maybe one more that has to come off the tools, so to speak, and try to replace him.
And hard.
So difficult.
Right, great. Similar themes then for everyone that's listening to the last podcast in terms of equipment, workmanship, quality, costs. Very interesting. If there's anyone out there listening who can influence some solutions to that, then we'd love to hear from you. Just drop a comment. Got a wee question for your next guest?
I've got a question.
Okay.
What's the biggest mistake you've made that you would do again?
Oh, right. Well, take the lessons from it and how would you change? Right, okay. Yep.
Yep.
What I've not had before. So I quite like that one. So it's not an industry-specific challenge. It's something to do with their own. Okay, fantastic. So for the listeners and the viewers, if they want to reach out to you and get in touch, how's best to reach out to you?
Through the website. We've got a new website that's launched as well. So
Right,
just
okay.
Google BCA Insulation.
Great.
And the website will take you through lots of different things that we do. And it's got a contact page on it as well, or just give the
And our
office a
phone
call.
number, numbers on it.
So everyone's on the web
Yeah.
page. Fantastic.
Yeah.
See, you're pretty stepping up the game on LinkedIn as well, so I've no doubt they can reach you on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Sure, you get Wilson, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm getting
dragging
there.
him in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love my LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks guys for coming along to the podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed the chat. And a few things. I'll hook up with you for the information on that insulation system, because we do get involved in some older buildings where that could fit. For your time, and
Thank you.
Look forward to the release.
Thanks
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Cheers.
thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Hard Hat Talks. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. That way, you'll be sure to never miss an episode. If you've got any feedback or a topic you want us to tackle, please drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Till next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and keep your hard hat on.